Hello, flute players. I am going to walk through the next playing test for you, which is also the wind ensemble audition. Before you start playing, there's a couple things you want to be aware of. The piece is in B flat concert, which at first seems super simple, but there are some accidentals scattered throughout, and one of the real challenges of this piece involves mixed articulation and large leaps where you're going to have to go from low notes to high notes and high notes to low notes on very short notice. The main theme of the first half of the excerpt is two quarter notes followed by 16th notes. Be sure that you play the quarter notes for their full value. 1, 2, 1 E and a 2, while the 16th notes need to be very light and separated. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ta. All right, we're now going to play the first four measures for you so you get this theme in your head. 1, 2, 1, 2. And 1, and 1. You notice that we were very aware of that eighth rest in the third and fourth measure so we do not rush or come in early. Now, the next line starts out in a very similar style, but gets a little bit more complicated. 1, 2, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 and all the way up to the high G. To practice this, you probably want to just play D up to G and back to D. A 1 and a 1 and. Listen to that. Again. Now, if I back up 3 notes to the G, I can practice that in context by going 2 E and a 1 and. And now I go back to the beginning of that line and play that whole phrase. There we go. So now we've learned the first 7 measures, no problem. Be careful in the next 2 measures for some accidentals, an E natural followed by G flat, which of course is the same as F sharp. And then you notice the main theme returns again, right where it says tempo, and it is literally the same 4 measures as before. Let's listen to that again. Ready, and 1 and 1. We now go on to another slight variation of the same theme, down to the D, followed by a bunch of 16th notes. Let's continue there. And again, we want to keep all of those notes very staccato. Every note should be separated. Listen to that one more time. Now the piece switches in style to slurs. We're going to forget about all the staccatos and we're going to work to mash everything together very smoothly. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1. Listen to those 4 measures, starting on the B flat. There's a few tricky things in there. You want to see the C sharp coming, but as long as you keep the steady tempo going, you won't have any problems. It also is important to remind ourselves at this point, it doesn't matter how fast or slow you go, as long as you are accurate. So make sure as you practice this the first few times, you take it slow. We're going to listen to that same section one more time, and we're going to keep going all the way until you see the chromaticism at the end of the next line. We're going to stop right where it says tempo. 1 E and a 2 E and a go. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. Exactly. Now we are down to the hardest part of the whole piece. You want to learn these 1 measure at a time or even 1 beat at a time. So let's take this last measure right where we stopped and just double check all of our fingerings, and then double check the rhythm. 1 and a 2, we and a 1. And you always want to continue to the downbeat of the next measure. So we're going to start on G and end on the low A. 1 and a 2, we and a 1. And you want to remember that the C sharp carries through, so that is a C sharp as written, and then the last note of that line is still a C sharp. Now we go on to the next measure, and we're going to very slowly play this measure, including the downbeat of the next measure, from A up to G. 1 E and a 2 E and a G. Again. And after you do that a few times, it'll start to feel a little more natural. Now this next measure is tricky, but if you remember that it's nearly exactly the same as the measure you just played, just an octave higher, it will help you to learn what it's supposed to sound like. Before we play this whole measure though, we're going to practice the last 3 notes. We have a high E sharp, which we don't see very often. The translation of E sharp, of course, is just F. The enharmonic equivalent is regular F. And then we do go on to the last note where it says tempo 1. That's a high F sharp because there is a key change that you see there. So we're just going to make sure that we have the right fingerings for E, F, and F sharp up high. Those 3 notes. I'm going to do that one more time. E, F, F sharp. And what you'll notice that sometimes happens when we go to play that high E, sometimes an A comes out. So we want to try that E all by itself and make sure we're coming out as a high E and not an A. There it is. Now we can try E, F, F sharp. And you notice that time it sounded like a chromatic scale, which it is. Now we can go back to the beginning of the measure and play each note, but tongue it before you try slurring it. Try going T, 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 ta. Then try to slur it. And that is how you can successfully complete this playing test on the flute. So good luck, and let me know if you have any specific questions.